Okay, so welcome back. It's been a while. What have you been up to?
Yeah, like we were just talking about, been out on vacation for the past week. So it's good to be back. It's good to be back in our space at our normal time and doing our normal thing. So looking forward to a fun conversation and, I feel recharged and ready to tackle the world. So let's do this.
Great. Glad to hear that. Now let's jump right in. Are we doing book 21?
We are.
We are.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Awesome.
Just loading.
Yeah, I don't know why that's not coming up. That's okay though.
Did it took a vacation too?
I think I'm on the wrong internet thing here internally. It doesn't matter. So, it's my VPN. I think is what's screwing that up a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is book 21 officially. It's a book called Tough Shit: Life Advice from a Fat Lazy Slob Who Did Good by Kevin Smith. Do you guys know who Kevin Smith is? Blake, are you familiar?
Mm-mm.
True.
I know a guy by the same name, but not the right one.
Yeah. So Kevin Smith is like he's a famous director, and Jay and Silent Bob. You guys ever heard of Jay and Silent Bob? He's Silent Bob and Jay and Silent Bob. He did Mallrats and Clerks and Chasing Amy and all this other stuff. He's been a pretty famous director since the mid 90s. He was a part of that whole Miramax, Harvey Weinstein team doing all these indie movies and kind of cutting edge back in that day. I was never like a huge Kevin Smith fan, but he's one of those people that are like people have like a thing about Kevin Smith movies and stuff like that. He has like a cult following kind of thing. I have some really close friends of mine that are really big into Kevin Smith movies, and I saw this autobiography of his and I thought, you know what, I've never really learned much about him. I wanted to know a little bit more, so that was why I decided to go buy this one and try this book. But yeah, it's about basically his career as a director and moving through Hollywood and trying to create his art, from how he got inspired to want to start to make movies in the beginning of his life to some of his big successes and failures and what he's doing now these days. So it was a really actually interesting read. One of the things that really stuck out to me the most about this story and how it related to my own life and how, the lesson that I learned from Kevin Smith's autobiography was, when his first hit came out, it was this really like independent movie that he spent like no budget on. I mean, it was like $50,000 or something like that. It was a movie called Clerks, and he wrote about a movie about his own life. Really, it's a stupid movie. It's like about two convenience store clerks, and that's basically it. It was shot with like no budget. It's just them following their life, and I never got it. Like, it wasn't one of those movies that when I saw it, it didn't appeal to me necessarily, but there's so many people that it did appeal to, and that's really what kickstarted off his career. And really, the funny thing that I kept hearing from him over and over again was this was a reflection of his life. He wrote what he knew, and specifically when you use your own life as inspiration and you write what you know and you create what you know, it comes across as authentic, and it comes across as what other people resonate with and they enjoy it, right? And that's why you can make a movie for $50,000 and it become a launching pad for your entire career, and it resonated with people because it was his life and he was creating, and his art does reflect his life. So the biggest lesson that I took though from the whole story was, for the rest of his career, he was chasing that recreating of that. Everybody wanted him to do Clerks again, do Clerks again, do Clerks again. So he kept trying to make the same movie over and over and over again with different variations. And he kept talking about in his own story that as he went on and more in his career, when he first started, he didn't know what he was doing as a director. By the time that he was, 20 years into this whole entire world, he was like, I felt like I was a really good director these days, but I just, the work that I was doing wasn't the same kind of work anymore. And it was becoming more of a, it felt more like work. Like it wasn't fun anymore for him. It wasn't like he had a blast when he was making like his early movies, and it really reflected his life. So that's my personal lesson that I learned is when art becomes work is when you start to create for other people. So my personal lesson out of this whole entire thing that I try to live and try to reflect is with stuff like this, your magical learning. This is for us. Like, this isn't for anybody else. It's reading books. It's going through this process. It's learning. It's applying these lessons to your life. This isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. This was inspired by Amelia. This was inspired by stuff that we do together. This was inspired by all this other things that felt natural, and who knows if it's going to turn out great or not someday, but I don't really care because we're doing it for ourselves. It's kind of similar to him taking it back to his roots with Clerks. He didn't care when he was making that movie. He just wanted to have fun with his friends and do something that he knew and create art, So my big lesson I learned is to learn from this would be to not force art, draw from inspiration of your own life and do stuff that you like and do it for yourself. That's it. Like, I mean, create what you know and create from your own purpose, and it'll be great. It'll resonate with somebody. So that's the question is, I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on that reflection and how you guys feel like that applies to your life. And the question that I pose to everybody is, how can you take back control of your own art and your own life? So maybe, I don't know who wants to start, but what are your guys' thoughts?
Sure, why don't you go first?
Art to me is freedom, and art to me is natural. When you had to do something, then it's not art.
That was my big question: is what is art? That was the first thing I was thinking this whole time, is what is art?
Art is anything. To me, is anything and everything.
Creation.
Art is what you create, what you do. It's not something that it's in a category. Art means it's like magic for me.
Yeah.
When you say this is art, this is creativity, this is magic, this is something awesome. And to me, in order for you to get the art, don't be constrained, be free. When you're free, then you will have art. It's just a byproduct. It's automatic that you don't need to create. It's just gonna, as long when you are free, then things you do, because of the nature of human being has to put effort into something, whether that's playing tennis, that's playing poker, skydiving, whatever it is, becomes an art, because you freely to explore. You're not constrained. But the moment you have to do this because my mom told me I have to do this, society tells me I have to do this, my family tells me I have to do this, then it becomes work.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what it is, it becomes work.
100% agree. I mean, that's what happened to him, is he lost the passion of creating films and directing, and his career plateaued. Like, I mean, he never really got past Clerks. I mean, that's what everybody knows him for.
Have to live up to these expectations becomes, well, I'm not free anymore. I'm doing what people are wanting me to do.
Right.
So I'm not free. Then it becomes work for him. So
if
somebody is telling him what he needs to do.
If somebody told me I need to go read 365 books and write 365 reflections for some project, I'd be like,
even one.
I would say no, I'm not doing that. Like there's no way in hell I'm doing that. Like, but for me, this whole project has a different purpose. And the reason why we're doing this stuff has a different purpose. We're not doing it to hit a number. We're doing it to live our own values. And that's what art is living your values, and living your unique purpose.
I mean, it's an interesting thing for me to think about. I guess I've never really, I think it's an interesting idea. The whole art is basically freedom to do whatever you want and kind of express yourself and not, I guess, be told by someone what to do. Like if you're a painter, and you make your own creations, that's art. Now, if someone says, I want you to, I'll buy this from you, if you paint this, is that art or is that just a job you're doing? I think about, like, I make soap and it's enjoyable and I like giving it to people because it's,
once to tell you how to make it becomes work for you. Because right now you make it because you say, well, I like it. I want to put this and that in there. And I have the freedom to pick whatever I want and how I want to do it. And you enjoy that. It becomes art. But then the moment I say, hey, Blake, you need to put in something a little bit smaller. I need to put, a little bit less wax or less oil or less, aroma or whatever. Then it becomes work. I guarantee you.
Yeah, if I start taking orders from people that they wanted, this and that, I don't know if it would be enjoyable anymore. So, it all kind of makes me think, if you have a hobby and art that you love, it might be a healthy thing to separate that from, becoming, don't let it turn into work, because that can kind of destroy the art that you love.
That's the holy grail, though. That is the holy grail. The problem is nobody's paying us to do what we're doing right now, right? Like, so people think, well, I have to make money, right? I have to, maybe this becomes a huge success, like we talked about with like Chicken Soup for the Soul kind of, model where people submit their own Your Magical Learning, journeys, and we make a bunch of books out of it or whatever. Or maybe they submit their own videos. Who cares? The point I was trying to get at is nobody's paying us to do this stuff right now. And I don't expect anybody to pay us to do this stuff right now because we're doing it for ourselves. However, at the end of the day, let's just pretend it for whatever reason this resonates with somebody else out there, which if you're doing art and you're doing stuff that you love, I have a feeling that it will. Like, what do you do then? You know, when now you have a publisher and they're like, well, we need you to produce another 365 books. I'm not gonna do it. Like, I mean, this is a specific project, a specific thing that I'm doing for my daughter, for my own purpose. And once it's done, it's done. Like, I'm not gonna like, I will find another project and we can talk about that. But I don't know. It's the holy grail, right? Like, is how do you maintain that and figure out how to keep doing what you're doing, but still love what you're trying to do?
I highly recommend. I know I sent this to you guys once, but there's a Joe Rogan podcast where he interviews Jewel.
Mm-hmm.
And
I watched that.
Yeah. And when she was talking about making her music and kind of just her whole career, it seems like she really stuck to what she loved doing and didn't, necessarily try to sell out. I just think it's got to be so hard. You got to be firm and know who you are and what you're doing, why you're doing it. And someone's throwing money at you. You got to be strong in your faith and what you're doing to say, no, that's not in line with what I enjoy doing.
Right. That's why we have core values. Core values for you is, how much do you value your freedom? How much do you value your ability to be creative? If you know that, then yeah, you can decide in that moment that, yeah, I don't need to have this contract. I don't need to have this commissions from this or that or the other, because you know ahead of time what you value more, what you value most. And so with that, then it's easier to make that decisions to stay away from the pitfalls of getting, kind of engulfed by your influence, your external stimuli.
So this guy didn't know his core values, maybe.
This is really interesting. You say both of your comments, because you look at like dudes like, those child stars or whatever, that like your point is so spot on of they don't know themselves. Like, how can you know yourself when you're Britney Spears and you're, just this mega pop star at 16 or whatever, and she's living her life, and you see them just spiral out of control later on, and because they never know who they are, and they're always doing stuff for other people, and they get lost in this spiral of creating for other people. I mean, Kevin Smith isn't much different. He kind of regained his own life and his own footing, and he's doing stuff that he loves to do now. And he's really, you haven't heard a lot about him, but maybe you will someday again when he starts to, he's doing stuff that he loves, which is talking about comic books and shit like that, and making dirty fart jokes. Like, that's what he likes to do. Like, that is his art in a weird way. When he started to get away from these things, like, he finally found himself again, and now he's doing that again in his 50s or whatever it is. Like, the problem that you're describing is Jewel, I think, had some very serious compass and core values and purpose from the get-go. I mean, her story is a really unique story of how she came to be who she came to be. And that's probably one of the reasons why she's still around and still relevant and still happy and healthy and growing old and living a purpose-driven life for herself at this point in time, because she's been in control and she knows herself. So I think that's the key is know yourself, right? Like, I mean, you're so right. Like, you can't stop somebody else from hijacking your art unless you know why you're doing what you're doing.
And I don't want to get sidetracked. Me and my wife just had this conversation about nothing gets me fired up and like angry more than the whole Britney Spears stuff. The fact that she is like, if you look at her Instagram, I know you probably, I mean, my wife shows me, you have someone who clearly there are issues going on there. She is not healthy, and it's like her whole life and what it's turned into is honestly very sad. It's our entertainment. Just that whole topic of this, where she's at is just our entertainment. I think is sad and gets me very angry. But that's just one of the things that get me real hot.
I agree with you, though. It is sad. Like, actually, I have a few more reflections in the future about stuff like this. Like Jack Kerouac in particular, Drew and I have talked about that guy, yeah, I mean, it sucks. It's really fun and exciting in the beginning because you don't know what's going on. But then at the end of the day, then you don't know. Like when you don't have that compass, like you're screwed.
Yes, it's just like, the same concept applies. Is don't give me a fighter jet without training me to fly first. A lot of these kids, they are catapult to stardom without learning the psychologies of how to deal with these things, because some are going to be very nasty to you for whatever reason. Maybe they're jealous and they hate you and they give you hate speech for whatever reason, and you don't have the psych to withstand this kind of pressure. And so it's like, okay, I give you a sword, but they need to have the organic endurance of knowing things and getting to a point where they can stand on their own 2 feet with the things they're holding. You can't just throw me a tank and ask me to hold it up. I just can't do it. And so, like I said, a lot of times, it has to build a organic from the bottom up. Then a lot of pressure that is too much for one person to handle, and then it just spiral out of control. And it's sad to see these I mean, these are great, talented people. It's just that they don't have the psyche to absorb all these, positive or negative, or whatever it is.
Think about anyone that becomes famous. Think about anyone that becomes famous. How do they know what they're getting into, or all of a sudden all this publicity comes to them? I mean, how are you supposed to know what you're supposed to, the things that you should know before that whole process starts? And I mean,
well, that comes from being around a tribe of other purpose-driven people. It comes from somebody teaching. These are not hard things to learn. Like, I mean, it really isn't. Like, I mean, we're not talking about rocket science or something. It's talking about, like just talking to yourself and figuring out what you really care about at your core, and what you really value and how you want to live your life. You need mentor, you need guide, you need somebody that can help you show, like, yes, how are you supposed to know that when somebody says a 16-year-old with nobody to guide you? You're not. Like, but at the same time, like, we're not talking about like, some crazy, like off the wall, like thing. They just need somebody that cares about them, that for themselves and wants to help them and coach
care for
them.
themselves, for that person truly, and not for the money. Because a lot of people that surround these kids are there because, hey, I want to make a quick buck from this person. But you look at, Britney Spears, Justin Bieber. I mean, everybody is trying to make money off of these kids. And so they don't have the real intentions of, okay, how do I guide this person to be, okay, don't take that contract, or these people are not worth your time. No one tells them that. Everybody say, yeah, whatever is going to make them money is what they're going to push these kids towards. Yeah, and these kids are basically collateral damage.
Yeah, right. So, sad thing is the society don't understand some of the stuff that we're talking about, and like their own parents don't understand this stuff, Blake. I mean, like Britney Spears' family's a train wreck, and so is Bieber's family, and so is like all these. I mean, like they don't even their own parents at home. I mean, it starts at home, and then obviously if you can't get it there, then you need to have a mentor or somebody to help them. But like, yeah, I don't know, it's tough. Or you just learn the hard way, and you learn yourself. Like, I mean, like, and hope it all works out. Like, I can't imagine, right? Like, that's the whole I can't imagine event. Yeah. It depends on when you get thrown into a situation like that. Like, are you going to fall apart? Are you going to turn into Britney Spears when you're 40? Or are you going to turn into Jewel? Because it's not like she didn't have her own trials and tribulations.
Well, her mom was the one that was stealing money from her, stole millions of dollars from her. Exactly. And that's the thing too. Like, you have people that might care about you, but it's amazing with people when
you say if you really care about her, why would you steal money from her? To me, that's it's anti-evidence.
It's the whole, and you're right. Do they really care about them? I don't know. It's the whole thing when you never, I believe you never really know until you are put in the situation where, that amount of money is dangled in front of me. You have that sort of temptation opportunity. I could say right now, oh, I would never do that. And maybe I never would. And I believe I never would, but it's not true until I have the opportunity to do it and actually make the right decision. I mean, it's just amazing how people can change when those kind of things are put in front of them.
It's because they don't have the values that
I don't think people change
anchor on to make that decision. They're filtering it through what's good now versus what is good for them in the long run. The solutions to these problems are not really that difficult, but to your point, so many people walk around without understanding who they are and what is important to them or not. It's easy to say no to stuff when you know what's important to you. When you don't know, you say yes to everything, and then you get yourself into a shitty situation.
Like, I'm just trying to think of an example of someone who was maybe, originally everybody's like, oh, they're such a great person. And then who they are just spiral out of control. And maybe it's they never, maybe you're right. Maybe they just never knew who they were in the beginning. And it just happened to be a good person, doing the right things.
Well, I don't want to spoil like one of our another books coming up, but Andre Agassi is like the perfect example of that. Like, he never had a choice. Like, his father forced him as a kid to play tennis all day, every day. He never chose tennis. As a matter of fact, he always used to tell everybody, I absolutely hate tennis, 100%, like all day. Like, he was like, if I could never play this ever again. However, that's all that he knew how to do. And he was really, really good at it, but he hated it. He hated every minute of it. Like it wasn't until later on in his life when he went through his own event in his own life that he discovered what's really important to him and what he really values. And he was able to then take that work that was work before and then turn that work into something that can help him with his art. In your case, what you're talking about with like the soap situation of how do you balance maybe both? Like he was able to live that both world of like, I can now work on my work and be happy because I'm channeling it to something else. And that's one way to go about it. The ideal world would be to have it all synergistic and together, right? But that's hard to do. Like there's not a whole lot of people that are able to do that.
Yeah, it's easy to say, you know, that's the holy grail, but to actually accomplish it, it's probably a little bit more challenging than people.
I mean, look at Patagonia. That guy started because he just really cared about climbing and hiking and doing all the outdoor stuff that he did. So he started a company to help improve some of the problems that he was doing. Once it became like an actual company, he didn't know how to run it. He had to go back to the values of why he even started in the first place 20 years on down the road before they decided to turn it all around and anchor down on their values. And then it became Patagonia as we know it today. Otherwise, it was just some struggling crap, you know, product company or whatever that never wanted to actually be. It's just hard.
But it starts with having core values.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Core values in a tribe of mentors.
There you go. It's true. You're setting yourself up, giving yourself the best chance for success that way.
Mm-hmm. Just increasing the odds.
Love
so
it.
with that, I think I think that's all the time we have.
Yeah, that's good discussion, guys. So the question we can leave with any viewers is, you know, how can you take back control of your own art? If something feels like it's work today, like, but it's something you really love to do, how can you figure out a way to take back control of that and do it for yourself and do it, you know, reflecting what you care about.
Right. Do you want to?
Do something different. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was enjoyable. Well, thank you. And welcome back, Chris.
Good to be back.
We'll see you tomorrow.